Hello and welcome to another episode of Inside Marine. Today, I'm talking to a managing director, a designer, an all-round industry influencer. It gives me great pleasure today to welcome Justin Olesinski to the show. Hi there, Justin.
Hi, James. How you doing?
Yeah, very good, very good. Thanks very much for making some time to come and chat to me today.
Yeah, looking forward to it. No tricky questions, I
hope. we'll try and keep it pretty simple. But look, I've been really looking forward to speaking to you because I know that not only is Olesinski been around for, I believe, nearly 50 years. Fantastic heritage in the industry, work with some incredible brands, and we look forward to hearing a bit more about that from you. But also really embracing some modern and quite futuristic technologies. So I think we'll cover that today as well. So it should be a really, really great conversation. But what we like to do, we like to start at the very, very beginning and tell us how and why did you get into this industry?
Well, James, it's an industry my father's been involved in. He started the company back in the 70s. As a child, I saw him in his drawing office, and I looked at the boats and on the drawing board. And then in the early days, we were lucky to see one out there. You know, in those days, there were very few pleasure boats, commercial boats or ferries, but very few back in the 70s. And he sort of turned that industry with the help of Fairline and Princess into a market, an industry, which was where you could go and enjoy yourself. So there's a big change in the social side of things. People had a bit more money. So that was my sort of true introduction. You know, we had small ribs that we could go and play on. Studied design. I really enjoyed design at school and university. Sort of a bit lost when I came out of university. I did industrial design, which isn't what you'd normally study to do naval architecture, which is fundamentally what we do here. But I thought, well, I might try a bit of marine design, and not necessarily the mathematical side. That's not my strong point, but more on the styling side of things. And did that for a few years. Sort of wanted to go out by myself rather than just be working from father for the rest of my life, being Olesinski Sons or something. And went to work for Philippe Briand out in France. It was only a short time out there, but learned French as well. And then when I came back from there, I thought, how can I learn a bit more about the industry rather than just drawing something? Until you've actually used it practically, you don't really know how to design it. You can look at other designs, but you don't really know why they've done those certain things. So I was fortunate enough to work at Boat Show, met someone from Princess, Roger Littman, from Princess Motor Yacht Sales, and for about 2.5 years was a broker there. And during that time, I learned how to drive the boats, how to tie the boats up, all the sort of practical things. And I also learnt the type of person that bought the boats and what they wanted from the boats. So rather than just making something pretty, it was, they wanted something for the weekend, how often they used them and that sort of thing. I wasn't a very good broker. I really wasn't. I did enjoy the job, but I really wasn't good. And I think Roger probably backed me up on that one. And Motorboats Monthly, which is the sister magazine of Motorboats and Yachting, approached me and said, if you ever get bored and you'd like to test boats and write about them, we'd like you. So I then moved to them, and that was small boats from small ribs, really small ribs, up to sort of 60-foot motor cruisers. And then, so therefore I got to know the rest of the market, not just the Princess, but the rest of the market, because I was testing all the now competitors. then Boat International. I worked for Boat International, and they were the much more super yachts. So then you realise that it's not about how fast you can turn, but more about the interior decor, and the lifestyle of the people changes as well as you move up in size. And then after all of that, I sort of realised that I had information that, and sort of like so I knew who the people were, what they wanted, how the boats were used, and all the competition. And I thought I had something to bring back to the company. And so I returned to the company, my father's company, and been here ever since, really. So that's my introduction, and that's sort of where I am now.
Yeah. Well, I can see how, having that more broader experience leading back into coming back into the business could be really helpful. And I've never actually thought of it from that perspective, especially if your clients have a really wide range of products, or their customer base is going to be much wider as well. So having a really great understanding of all those different, I guess, demographics of customer across the industry, different size vessels, must be hugely beneficial to you. Yeah, and
I did a lot of travelling in amongst all of this, so you understand. People want different things in different countries, and it's surprising actually the number of people that join the industry. It is a niche industry, it's pretty small. Everyone knows, after only a couple of years, pretty much everyone knows you, and you know pretty much everyone else. And there's quite a lot of mixing up of people moving from company to company, and that's part of life. But it's interesting that because it's niche, even in this niche industry, we've still got even more niches. So we've got people that are coming in from in our own company from Coventry University, because they're automotive stylists, and we need the people who are stylists. We need naval architects, and they might come from Southampton University or Plymouth or Newcastle upon Tyne. And then you've got the structural engineers, and they may come from automotive, aero. There's lots of different inputs, and every company has actually got its sort of strengths, but very few have got all of those together, which is something we try and do, which is have a product that considers all of these points, and then you can put to the client just to one hit, rather than conflicting companies. We want more space here, or we want it to look like this, and they not really work together. It's quite a niche industry, but even things are changing so quickly in the boating industry. I think sometimes it's been said that the yards are slow to move or change and things, but if we start a project today, in 2 years' time, that yacht will be out on the water, and someone who's just started will have designed something on that, with supervision, will have something on that boat, and within 2 years they'll be being lead designer on that boat. So it's very, very quick to react to the way the market's going as well. Yeah. And
over the years, either when you rejoined the family business, or actually when you were working more in the media side of things, have you seen, what were the significant sort of changes that you've seen, I suppose, over the years, kind of leading up to now within the industry?
I think the first one I saw was going from, it sounds like I'm really up now, but going from line drawings to AutoCAD. That was massive. When we started using computers, the next big stage up was using computers instead of doing test tank models, which are expensive and take time to build, was using the 3D models to run simulations, so they can be naval architectural simulations. And when I say that's more the efficiencies of the hull, or it could be structural. So we can have the structural, looking into which is the best structures, where it's going to fail, and how we can build it up as well. So that was the next big stage. And then we've obviously got the AI as well, which, you know, is work in progress and probably always will be. But I think the availability of boats to people is another thing. The cost of boats, they are very expensive things, not only to buy them, but to keep them as well. But as the market grew and grew and grew, you could pick up a second-hand boat, and they've become a lot more affordable. You know, the yachts at the lower end of the market, you know, they've got really good finance deals and things, and a lot of people can get involved in it. And when I first started, it was for the rich and famous. That was the industry, super yachts, big yachts. That's come down, and you know, a lot of people now are simply own their own companies, or they're all self-made. So, and also they're a lot younger as well. So instead of just going on the boat around the Med or something, people are doing a lot more weekends. They're going with friends. There's a lot more activities, so they want to you know, take tenders out and go around and paddle boards and all the rest of it. So there's a real sort of change from it being quite formal into much more sporty way of life as well. Yeah.
And how much does that then influence, I guess, the model design of the boat builders and also the design work that you do? Are you having to constantly change your approach to the design to meet those needs, or is the customer having to sort of adapt their needs to what's available on the market, for example?
That's a good point, because what used to happen is we used to tell, there was two people. There was the people who said, I know what I want, and I'd like you to build me the next, like my old boat, but bigger. And, you know, there was that few numbers. And then you got to the stage where you say, right, in the future, I think that people should have this. And the word should is a really bad word that designers shouldn't use. And then, so half my life is now spent predicting what people will be using boats and how they're going to be using. So a classic thing here is, like I said, it takes 2 years to design a boat, design and get it into the water. On a production boat, you're looking at 5-6 years production. So add the two together, you're looking at 8 years. So that boat has got to be still being able to be sold in 8 years' time. Now, if we look back when the first iPhones came out, you know, that was a huge jump. People having Wi-Fi's on boat, or just looking at the internet, being able to book things themselves, and, you know, cutting out brokers and what have you. So there's big gains there. So there's only so much you can look ahead, but you do have to look at lifestyles. There's a number of like ourselves that look at the lifestyle of people now. We also, I think it's important to have a really varied age group and geographic, you know, multi-international background of people who are within the company. So you've got people with a lot of experience that in their 50s. And you've also got much younger people in their 20s who've got fresher ideas, who will be the people who can afford the boat in 8 years' time if they did very well. I don't think we paid them quite enough to afford a super yacht, you know, within 8 years of starting with us. But if we do one day, we might. But yeah, so quite often we look at it that way. So with the ages of someone buying it, let's say they're 40s, 35 to 50, we look at someone who's 8 years younger than that, 28 years. So what do you want now? What do you think you'll want in 8 years? You know, or look at the person who is 45 years old and say, right, what have you got? Do you have children? You know, do you like to go out with your friends? What's your sort of thing? People change. They don't change that much, but what they themselves, and physically they don't change. I know head rings on boats have got progressively higher over the years. But, physically they want the same things. They need somewhere to enjoy themselves or have dine or sleep or wash or, and all the rest of it. So we still got basic needs which need to be incorporated. But, the change can is ongoing, and we've always got to try and predict what people want to do with their boats.
Yeah, absolutely. An ongoing challenge, I guess, with an ever-changing world, right?
Yeah, and it's all moving towards people wanting things quicker, cheaper. Everything. I know food's starting to go up again, but people didn't used to. When this company started 50 years ago, people went out for a meal as a real, a treat for like someone's birthday or something. But now, it's a little bit, more commonplace. So people's spending habits change as well, and the number of people that are able to afford it.
I'm always really interested to talk with somebody who's been in a particular area of the industry or worked within a particular business, for example, for quite a long time, in terms of what they have seen over the years in terms of the interest of people wanting to come into their part of the industry, whether that is people transferring from other industries or actually kind of making that conscious decision that is the industry that I want to go and work in. And I've talked to a few of our guests around this in their respective areas of the industry, but really interested to understand over the years what you've seen from people wanting to choose that yacht design sector. And actually, as the needs of customers are growing and technologies are changing and things like that, are we now, up to present day, still attracting the right people easily enough?
Well, I think I was at the, when I started here, we used to my father used to put an advert in the local paper. There was quite a lot of people who were technical draftsmen or naval architects locally, and they'd read the local paper and they'd write their CV in, and that would be it. And say, can you do the job? Great. And there would be half a page of contract, no such thing as HR. And as we've gone through, I think as I got more and more involved in the selection process of going to universities, using LinkedIn and the power of, and particularly, since the pandemic, people working remotely. They're all massive game changers. Previously, we, if you put a hashtag designer on your LinkedIn advert, you get people from all sorts of, and it can open up a lot of interest, and that's a good thing. We've always been restricted, the choice that we've had of a designer, because we want them to do exactly the same as that designer, but we need two of them. That's the sort of thing, and it takes a long time to train people up. It takes 2 to 3 years straight from university. But even if someone's been in another part of the industry, of the same industry, it still takes us 2 to 3 years to sculpt them into the way we like to do things. But just seeing how we're seen, I think really, you were on the committee of Superyacht UK, British Marine, and when we did the Young Designer competition, and you saw, we opened it up to all the universities, and you saw the classics, which were like Southampton, Solent University, Southampton University, Coventry, Exeter, Plymouth, those classic marine universities or colleges. They knew what the boating industry was. But what was really interesting is so many people who, I think we had 10 or 20 people, so many people didn't. They just had no idea of our whole industry. And that's even now with with LinkedIn and, all the things like that. But I think the word is getting out there. But I think looking ahead, we've just employed our first person who came in here for 2 weeks induction straight from another company, and they're working remotely from the get-go. So that's brand new. We're lucky, fortunate, and especially at the moment that we can work remotely. But I think looking forward, it was mentioned at a conference recently that there's going to be a huge shortage. I mean, business is good. Business is really good for pretty much the whole sector. And we are going to look at big shortage in designers just because of the amount of work we've got on. We have got a lot of, in the last 5 years, before that there was a few sort of BMW collaborations, or Jaguar, or whoever. But now there's a lot more. We collaborate with Pininfarina, so there's a lot more automotive design houses or designers that are moving into our industry, because I think they realise that the EV market is going to be quite a tricky one. That industry is starting to squeak a lot, and at the moment there's quite a lot of opportunities with us. But I think that most industries will see a sort of bit of a shortage with resource.
Yeah. No, really interesting, and I mean that brings us really nicely into the sort of the present day, if you like, and really. You touched on there that you're super busy. I think everybody is, but really interested to get your take on the market in general right now. What are you seeing?
Well, we're predominantly up to 35, 40 meters. When you go to the super yacht conferences, the super yachts above 35, 40 meters, they're flat out. They've got, but for us, all I can really talk about is the production. I think I'm safe in saying that pretty much all boats, you can't get your hands on a new one for 3 years. That's the design is there. The production rate has got to increase to meet the demand. That's a very fortunate position to be in, where the demand is higher than what you can actually produce at the moment. So that's the sort of first metric that you can see there. The appetite for new models is there. The newcomers into the market as well, the new yards, especially in places like Turkey and Mediterranean yards. Sometimes it's just name changes or ownership changes, but there is a lot more very, very niche. The market is definitely getting split up even more into smaller things. So I think they're the main sort of things I can see at the moment. It's very good at the moment. Obviously, funny enough, when we went to the beginning of the pandemic, the number of yachts that were ordered up went very high. And yeah, it's just difficult to keep up with that demand. We've also noticed that in places like Asia, which have always been just on the other side of the hill, that market is really going to pick up. But it really has, especially in the 70-foot plus, 35, 25, 28 metre market. It's really booming there as well. There's, I don't know if it's legislation changes or cultural changes that they're accepting boating rather than whatever reason, but it's really, really growing there as well.
I keep hearing this a lot at the moment around people's perception of the market and the long waiting lists and things like that, which is really great, but also for me, we have this huge opportunity right now with this quite a lot of new interest in our industry. And But if these are new customers with these long waiting lists and things like that, we need to consolidate on this huge opportunity, but also we have this huge risk of finally we have this new interest, but they may not want to wait that long. And what's your thoughts on that? I mean, what can we doing to kind of retain these people and this interest in these big long waiting periods?
Well, I think it's spot on there. I mean, I've mentioned before that my son who's 8, if something arrives, if he orders something up, he expects it to arrive next day or 2 days. Whereas 5 years ago, you'd wait a couple of weeks within delivery within 21 days. It was always that. But when he grows up, if he's fortunate to be able to afford one of these things, he's not going to want to wait. And so we can't, as designers, we can't change the world or supply chain issues and things like that, which there are currently a lot of because of the situation, but they should roll out a bit. But what we can do is we can help reduce the time it takes to design the boat, and we can help reduce the time it takes to build the boat by designing it smarter, designing it for production. So designing it for production means there will be less individual parts. Do we have to have this styling, which, looks fantastic, but is really difficult to build? It's going to cost the customer a lot. And will they actually really appreciate it? So you've got to put a sort of sanity check on that. On the reducing the time to market, we touched on earlier that we're now investing, or we have been investing for about 5-6 years in artificial intelligence, which depends how you use it. But at the moment, we can now create, for example, the way we design boats is we start off with a layout. We've got a hull that we test on 3D, and we put the structure in, and then we adjust it all, and then put a profile on there and make it look really good, and then sort of try and get the weight out and the speed up, and everything squeezes, and then you get somewhere. Takes a long time, a lot of resource in there. But what AI can do for us is it can create, you can type in how many cabins you want, what speed you want the boat to do. It will then create that in 3D. We give it a hull, and then it can tell the hull, there will be a loop coming up soon, of, if we change the boat a little bit longer, we can get this extra cabin in, or an extra head, or whatever. So what that does is instead of taking, we just did a recent check, and instead of taking 2 weeks to get a layout that works, we can get 4 or 5 layouts within 37 hours. So wow. And that's only one machine and one guy for a few minutes putting in the details. He's not actually on it. It's not one man, 37 hours. It's, that's incredible. And, that time will drop down when we learn how to do it. So our aim is, when people worry about losing their jobs or there not being a design job because that side of things taken away. And we've been using sort of AI in different aspects for quite a long time. And instead of taking jobs away, it's like when AutoCAD came out, you just change your tasks. So instead of becoming a lines person, you're an operator in CAD. Yeah. And there's things that you don't want to waste time to drawing a layout that you only find out right at the end doesn't work. This does it for you. So you can then use that as the package. It's like in a car, you can use that as a chassis. And then your styling, you can spend more time styling, or you can reduce the overall time to get the project out.
So, and that's really interesting. And, there's so much new technology that's coming out in our industry at the moment. In so many aspects of it, from I heard about augmented reality navigation goggles recently, and of course the advances in foiling and now artificial intelligence in the design process. I mean, it's really fascinating. And is this something that you're seeing becoming a bit more mainstream, or is this something that you guys are pioneering a bit more within the industry?
I believe we're pioneering it, especially in the leisure industry. The cruise liners, cruise ships, they've been using it in a certain way because there's quite a lot of modular rooms, you know, so if you make one room, what's it look like when you multiply it by 2,500, you know, they've got those things in there. But no, as far as I know, I don't know anyone else is doing the AI. We're going to, you know, get all the, iron out all the creases, but it might be something that we offer as a service in the future, or we might keep to ourselves. I think it would be really good if we could, you know, provide it as a service for other people so they can get on and, you know, do the different styling. You know, there's other things as well, James, which is all the rapid prototyping, the way mock-ups are done, the VR, you know, we use VR to, we get the models up instead of just looking on the screen. We make, first of all, we can walk around the boat full size, fully rendered up, or we can put it on our meeting room table and walk around that table and have like the augmented reality sort of thing and do that there as well. And, you know, you can do that for the customers. The customer can see their boat way before they can get it to what they want. You know, we were talking about that timescale earlier. They can do it as soon as the data's there. And I think Fedships just sold their first digital boat, haven't they, or something? 300,000.
Right. Okay.
It's a very green boat. There was no metal used, no composites, no diesel engines. You know, it's just data. Wow. I don't think that's going to be for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I you know, I think our industry is maybe seen from outside as sometimes quite traditional or a little bit behind the times, and but I also actually think, on the other hand, we are doing so much right now from a technology point of view and pioneering AI. When we start to look at, you know, trying to attract more people, not just to buy boats and be the next customer, but actually to come and work in the industry. How important do you think in promoting a lot of this modern and futuristic advancements and technologies and techniques? How important is that to actually getting maybe next generations actually really interested in coming to work in our industry?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think you see it when you go to conferences or people like the Superyacht Group or Boats International, where you've got lots of industries there. And if you can sometimes stand on the shoulders of giants, you know, if you've got big aviation design, interior designers, a lot of those customers will be using on super yachts or interiors of smaller yachts. So I think, you know, the cross promotion, people do like naturally have, from our industry, are interested in the automotive and vice versa. You know, there's a lot of cross-pollination, both people there. I think it's very difficult to sort of go in the corner and go, look, what we're doing. And people go, well, we do that, you know, already. And we are ahead in a lot of ways, but we don't quite often have the finances to really invest as heavily as those really big industries. You know, if you look at the number of big yards, super yachts, what's there, 50 yards or something, production boats, probably 200-300 main people. You know, there's not that many in the world, and the budgets to really invest is not there. But, you know, I think one of the interesting points you brought up there was that we should stop just targeting our own industry. We should, if we want to grow the industry, we've got to bring more people from other areas, other industries, and promote it via them, and then, you know, we can grow that way. We won't grow if we're just, you know, talking amongst ourselves, sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And presumably using something like AI, that's and just going back to your point about the pre-AutoCAD, they were a linesman, and then actually the job didn't get taken away. It just changed the skills that you needed, that it's actually going to create, again, a whole another new skill that's required, within the industry.
Yeah, we're definitely. I mean, we're like I say, we're using VR. We're actually designing as well. Some of the designers are designing in 3D in VR. It's not as detailed as the stuff we need for production, but they are actually, coming up with this and using these other tools. And it's really good, because if you've got, you'll never do it by yourself, but if you've got 20 designers, they all try something different. That's really good. Apprenticeships, when people win competitions with us, or at universities, they come and spend a couple of weeks with us, and they can sort of keep us up to date. And, we've got university links as well, finding out, what's going on, what are they teaching the latest students. And because they're also universities, they've got funding to really push into new areas there as well. So, close collaboration with those universities is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So, is the motivation and the drive to start using these new technologies, VR, although actually, as you point out, not actually that new, but relatively new to our industry, VR, AI, is that sort of driven by a personal interest in that sort of thing, or is this within the sort of the business strategy, or do you feel it's just the way you've got to go as an industry? You can't avoid this stuff.
Yes. So all three of those.
All of them, right? Okay.
It's quite often suggested by one of the member of the team.
Yeah.
So someone will say, have you seen the latest VR? We go, yeah, it costs way too much, but when it comes down a little bit, let's keep your eye on it. And then it'll be of an interest to that designer, so that would happen. And then, for example, the AI, someone who's very interested in AI here, naval architect, done a lot of programs, says, I think we could do this. And you go, right. Or, so how could we bring that into the company? So, yeah. And it's not I think you will need to have it in the future. You just, quite often it's because there's something missing in the past. So, for example, you can't show a client the boat immediately of what you're proposing to sell them. You've got to wait for it to be built. And if someone says about a car, you wouldn't go, this piece of paper, and actually, before you've got the really high-class renderings, someone does a sketch like they do on the superyachts. If I sketched a car and left it in the BMW or Jaguar garage and said, someone came in and said, I'd like a new car, what have you got? And I showed them the 2 lines, they'd probably go, no, can I just have a look at something and sit in it? So, people, an immersive experience that they can buy into, and I don't mean just financially, but emotionally as well. That's where the VR side of things would come in. The AI things would come from individuals. But I also look at how the company itself runs as a whole. And we were one of the first 2 companies to get CAD in the marine industry. And at the time, it was seen, it's a different industry, we don't need it. We've always done it this way. But I think there's a real appetite to find the next software or presentation technique or interact in teams or whatever. There's a lot more interaction, a lot more communication going on before anything's done. Whereas previously you sort of do it and then show it. Whereas now there's a bit more chatting, a bit more communication, finding out exactly where we want to go. So all of those things, like I say, I can't remember the middle one, but all of those things, there is personal things as well. I prefer people, I want to keep people. So if you've given them something that they've got to do, like turning the handle every day, doing the same thing, that anything like that can be automated with AI. So you want to actually use their creativity, even in a discipline that may be not seen as being creative, but so they can continue to evolve as employees.
Fantastic. Well, I think it's really, really exciting to see you taking the first steps and again pioneering what is clearly going to be the way forward for the industry. And it feels to me at the moment, just kind of looking at staying in the future, and that there's a real appetite and it more than I've ever felt before across the industry for that conversation of what's next. What do we need to be doing now to whether that is in the technology side. We talk on here a lot about sustainability, for example, and what technology advancements do we need to put in place for the next thing or the next customer. But I just think, at the moment, everybody seems way more tuned into the next thing, even though everyone's more busy than they've ever been right now. Everyone's focus is in the right place. Would you agree with that? Do you
Absolutely.
see that?
I mean, if you think of what people were talking about, especially green issues, there's like we've seen about 10 years of greenwashing. We do this and it's really good for the environment, but actually we've got all private jets flying into all from all over the world. The clients come in and then they fill the boat, and it takes 3 days of filling a boat up with diesel, and it's complete nonsense. But there is good news on the horizon. There are a lot of big power generators, and I don't mean the generator, but people who are investing in hydrogen cells, into methanol, into hybrid or just pure electric, all the wave energy recuperation, stopping all the heat going out of the boats, and all the different types of air conditioning systems that are, I can't remember if it's hydrogen oxide, but they basically disinfect the air as well. So all the surfaces are disinfected. So there's a lot of things going on, which we need to look into the future, because like I said, we've got our own sort of 8 years, but come 2030, all cars in the UK and Europe will have to be hybrid or electric or zero emissions, no fossil fuels to be seen. And so we have to do that stuff now to make that goal then. So all the engine manufacturers are on board with this. You've got all the biofuels, which is like a stepping stone. At the moment, there's no golden bullet, but I just saw in the news yesterday that Panasonic is developing batteries for the Teslas, the new Teslas, which are 10 times more life, and if that's the case and the price is half as much as the current battery, slowly things become, we could actually use those on boats. So we're predicting what people want to do, but also the legislation that's going to come in as well. That's a huge driver, and often legislation changes people's opinions. So, for example, the green issues. So you can have net zero emissions, or you can have zero emissions. Now, I thought they were pretty much the same, but a zero emission means that you can't throw anything out in the boat. Net zero means you can carry on burning it, but you've got some family somewhere who's planting a forest for you. So it's not quite the same thing. So all the greenwashing is going to have to disappear. They've got big companies, like Coca-Cola and or other ones that have greenwashed, and probably shouldn't name them, but and they've been caught out, and people just can't afford to be caught out. So we have got to really push at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, and just again looking into the future, and obviously we've covered off quite a broad ranging on sort of a few things that are coming from a technology point of view and a sustainability point of view. But is there anything in particular that is really, really exciting you at the moment in terms of what you think is next? What's the next big thing for for you, just generally in the industry?
I think that it's a quite a high level thought, but it's the change in people's way of, like I said, people want to press a button. They want to order something. They don't want to talk to anyone, really. They want to, if you can read it, you can do it. You can buy cars now. They're delivered in, big cardboard boxes, apparently. I don't know if they actually do. Big cardboard box outside your house. Oh, brilliant. Just got my new car delivered. You can do all your configurators online of your car, and you don't have to talk to anyone. And it arrives. It tells you when it's going to arrive, and it arrives. And I think it would be great if you could have the same in the boating industry. I think it'd be really good if you can, as included in the price, people are educated in how to drive them. It'd be lovely. And also I think the biggest change that is going to come in the future, which will change so much, is instead of people, pretty much all Princess boats are owner driven. They're not charter boats. They're not designed to be charter boats. But I think there will be a huge shift in, people use them for 100 hours a year. And the amount of energy that goes into creating a boat for only 100 hours a year, it's not really that ecologically friendly, the energy and resource that you do that. So I think that there'll be either shared ownership or a lot more brokering, and getting back to this thing where you just want to press online. You just want to go to a broker site and go, that one looks good, I'll hire that one for a week, and then I'll use that one for a week. And then the boat gets used a lot more. So that per person, the amount of resource is relatively a lot lower. And I think there will be a lot more choice. And because it'll be easier to charter or rent a boat, it'd be cheaper because there'd be more people doing it and there'd be more boats in the marketplace. I think that will introduce more people into the boating industry, which can only be a good thing in terms of customers.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's prediction.
Yeah. Wow. Just more accessible, I think, is, it's got to make it more accessible. Okay. And we've gone through, your, a bit about your journey and then what's happening in the business right now and where you think things are going in the industry. And it's almost time for us to wrap up, but we always like to finish our interviews with one question to our guests, and that is just to give a piece of advice. And if you were to give one piece of advice to somebody considering coming into the industry, or has just started their career in the industry, what would that be?
It would be to get practical advice, practical knowledge. Mm-hmm. If you want to be a designer, you've got to understand why you're designing certain things. So do a course, do your powerboat level 2, go out there, go to the local sailing club, work on the launches there, go on charters. Instead of going and sitting on a beach somewhere, maybe charter a boat with a group of friends and experience it, and experience for a designer, experience why you would want to buy a boat, and why things are in the places they are. I think practical knowledge is something that has slowly disappeared. We try and teach it here, but I think that's probably the most valuable thing you can have in the industry.
I think, it's fantastic advice. It makes loads of sense, and actually, just sort of going back to what your experience was as you were going through your career, you that clearly benefited you, and I couldn't agree more for somebody that was coming into the industry without coming from that marine background. Brilliant. No, thank you very much, Justin. Well, it's been wonderful just chatting to you today and hearing about what's happening in the business. I'm really interested in this AI piece. I wish you all the luck with that. And it sounds like it's just a lot of fun figuring out how that all unfolds. And congratulations.
I've probably got a glossy side to it all. The chaps who are working on the AI, they're sort of pulling their hair out, probably a bit less hair than me now. But no, it is exciting. It does show you that everyone is moving ahead. And so thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, and congratulations to all of you at Olesinski, once again pioneering some new technology. And maybe you can come back again in the future and talk to us and update us with how it's all going.
Love to.
Yeah,
thanks, James.
Thanks, Justin.
Bye.